The conflict between Israel and Iran has reached its 5th day as Israel claims aerial superiority over Tehran.
Let's bring in our political panel to discuss. Cherie Murray is the New York GOP State Committee Chairwoman of the 29th Assembly District, and April Chapman is a Project 21 ambassador. Good morning, ladies. Great to have you.
Good morning.
You know, President Trump is very clear, right? Whether he's saying it verbally or sending out a truth on his social media platform, that Iran, no go with concerning, enrichment of uranium. It must end, and it's going to end really soon, whether they do it or President Trump does it. So your thoughts on Iran in the Israel attacks going back and forth, and what do you expect the outcome to be, April?
You know, this issue goes all the way back to the administration of Jimmy Carter. You know, sometimes you have to do an autopsy to figure out how did we get here. Iran threatens to make an atomic bomb. George Bush says, absolutely not. We cannot have that. He issues sanctions on them. Well, then enters the room Obama, who lifts the sanctions and then allows Iran to sell oil and gives them $150 billion of money on pallets. And then now this is the money that's been used to fund all of this terror and these terroristic organizations. We wouldn't have had October 7th if it wasn't for Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. They're all funded from this arrangement. So Donald Trump is coming in on the scene, ending the deal that Obama made with Iran, and then the sock puppet came in, and he ends that sanction. So Donald Trump has to come back on the scene again and clean up what the Democrats have done. They have allowed Iran to get stronger, and the Republican president that's in power now, Donald Trump, is doing what is going to be necessary to stop them. Democrats are weak. Whenever they're in power, Israel is finding themselves having to defend itself after years of Iranian proxy terror.
Yes, in terms of the moment, Donald Trump and Netanyahu, we have to really be thankful that we don't have Joe Biden, because one could only imagine his leadership at this point in time. It would be incredibly scary. But of course, 10 years ago today, to the day, the world was forever changed by this moment. Cherie, 10 years ago flew by, and look at everything President Trump has accomplished. We're looking at that montage of so many historic moments. Your reaction, as well as your latest thoughts as to President Trump returning back to the White House today.
Thank you for having me this morning, guys. I think President Trump not only has delivered on his promises to the American people, but he has made this country a better country overall. The posturing that he did on his first term, really delivered on the promises that he made, and the posturing that he's making now on his second term it's just remarkable. He made promises on the campaign trail from the time that he came down that escalator 10 years ago yesterday, and I'm just impressed by the administration that he has behind him that is keeping America, safe, keeping America prosperous. We are having an economic boom under the president. We feel more secure under the president. And so I think it's just a testament to what the future holds, the deliverables that he has already under his belt, and that he will continue to put forward for us as America. He is now seen as the world's president.
Well, he's seen as the American president, too, doing a lot of good things. And, the thing is that I was there when he came down the escalator, and for years, people have been talking about Trump running for office, but then he actually said he's not running. So I said, I'll show up, but he's not going to run. And then all of a sudden, minutes into his speech, he said, that is why I'm going to run for president. I was like, wait a second, this is actually going to happen. Wow. So it was very electric, and I'm glad he ran then, and I'm glad he ran again to be the 47th president. But, there's a lot of things we need to get done, and President Trump shared the focus of ICE's deportations.
I want them to focus on the cities, because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities.
That's right. We're not hanging out in the suburbs. We're going right into the inner city to get the criminals out of here. He's not wrong. April, your thoughts on the president's words?
You know, he's absolutely right. If we look at all of these cities, Democrat-controlled cities, a Democrat heaven is an American hell. These protests have been absolutely out of control. We're seeing people waving Iranian and Palestinian and Hamas and Mexican flags on American soil. All of this is funded by Democrats, by the way. And so it's very important that the president exhibits strength. And when federal facilities and federal employees are attacked, that is his wheelhouse. And he's absolutely going to step in and do something. But if you look at all of these cities are out of control. The sanctuary city status, Democrats need their next voting bloc. I always say on my show that Democrat cities are like slave plantations, and the Democrats are slaves looking for masters. And it's about time that we have a president that cracks down on this. The American people cannot shoulder the burden of illegal immigration. But like my other panelists here, we absolutely love legal immigration because America is a country full of opportunity. And when you come the right way, in one generation, you can completely change the trajectory of your life for future generations to come.
Right, exactly. It's not about immigration. It's about illegal immigration, and right. We welcome legal immigrants who are in our nation. Many of us are. But in terms of President Trump and where he's setting his focus for ICE, it's now Democrat-run cities such as New York, LA, and of course, Chicago. So contender for America's worst mayor, that may be Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson with an approval rating of 6%. This is what he said yesterday.
It will bring to Black residents in reclaiming ownership of our own communities. That is the spirit of Juneteenth, you all. It is about reflecting on our past. Other cultures are taught to never forget. We need to be reminded as Blacks here in Chicago and America, remembering our past and working towards a more just future. Investing in Black is not a criminal act.
Sheree, your reaction to Brandon Johnson is, of course, we just spoke about his approval rating as well.
Well, the irony here is, when President Trump wanted to reflect on America's history with our Army and the recent Army parade, they called him a king and a dictator. And so now here we have, the mayor of Chicago wanting to reflect on the history of African Americans, and he gets a pass. The hypocrisy is real between the Democrats and their hate for Trump and the Trump administration and everything that the administration tries to do, to just bring patriotism to the forefront. And so, Juneteenth is in front of us. And as a Black woman, we definitely want to reflect on the history and, our culture. But that's why it's so important. Martin Luther King wisely said that we respect people based on, the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And I think that, we just need to support each other overall, because that's the only true way that we can move forward as a society.
I took a deep breath because I thought I was going to wait until Thursday. But I'll say it Thursday, and I'll say it now before we move forward to the next topic. Juneteenth was not the end of slavery. It was the end of slavery in Texas. Mm-hmm. So those who think that it was the end of slavery, you're wrong, both Black, white, and otherwise. Why? Because there were, I think, almost 250,000 or slightly over that amount of slaves that was still in existence when the last slaves were freed in Galveston, Texas. So it's not the end of slavery. But you know what? The end of slavery happened in December. But guess what? You can't cook out in December, right? So they put a holiday in June. But let's move on. The Guardian put out a false article claiming that under President Trump, VA doctors will refuse to treat Democrats and unmarried veterans. VA Secretary Doug Collins dispelled this blatant lie by saying more proof that the fake news cannot be trusted. This story is not only false, it's ridiculous. All eligible veterans will always be welcome at VA and will always receive the benefits and services they've earned under the law. Like, this seems very clear. Why come out and blatantly lie? I could see if a politician did it, but now we have actually mainstream media doing it. April?
You know, it's sad that the secretary can't spend more time focusing on doing his job, but he has to run past interference and come out and issue these statements to correct the blatant lies. Under Trump's administration, the first one as well as this one, he's always prioritized caring for the veterans. But because Democrat policies and just Democrat ideology in general is so bankrupt and it lacks substance and it doesn't produce any measurable results, all they can do is lie. I was laughing because in the last segment, I'm watching Brandon Johnson talk about reparations with us. Not reparations, I'm sorry, Juneteenth. And it's because with a 6% approval rating, he is desperate and he doesn't have anything else to go on. But so he has to lean in on the identity politics. In the same way, to obfuscate what's really happening and the improvements that are being made, these lies are coming out about the veterans, and it's just simply not true. If anything, they are expanding coverage and making sure that disabilities and suicide prevention is being addressed. They're not losing any sort of coverage at all. If anything, it's being made better and more efficient.
Exactly. And just the last note, slavery was abolished by the 13th Amendment, not Juneteenth.
Exactly. Shereen Murray, April Chapman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.